Thank you very much, everybody. We're doing very well. We are doing very well, and we're doing very well, probably as well as anybody has ever done with Russia. And there's been no president ever as tough as I have been on Russia. All you have to do is look at the numbers, look at what we've done, look at sanctions, look at ambassadors not there, look, unfortunately, at what happened in Syria recently. And I think President Putin knows that better than anybody.
Absolutely.
Better than the media.
Absolutely.
He understands it, and he's not happy about it. And he shouldn't be happy about it, because there's never been a president as tough on Russia as I have been.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Kristen Welker, just to reiterate the question, is Russia still targeting the U.S.? Something all of his intelligence agencies have answered in the affirmative, that the committees, the relevant committees, have answered in the affirmative, and he said no. And it strikes me, as I'm looking at that tape, I'm not sure you can see it from where you are, but you know what a cabinet meeting looks like, that the people in that room, as he was answering that question, are the very same people who you reported were the ones who got him to go back yesterday and make this statement clarifying that he supports the intelligence community. They had to sit around that table just minutes ago and listen to him essentially disavow a key finding of the intelligence community.
You're absolutely right, and I would expect that there are going to be meetings about how they will clarify those comments. Again, when we hear from Sarah Sanders, but of course we're going to hear from the president in the coming days. He says he's going to have a big event tomorrow, a workforce training event, so he'll get some more questions about all of it.
I think what we're having here is a conflict of interest pertaining to the information that should be given to the general public versus the classified information that only high intel and high-ranking officials have been well prepped in for probably the last, I'm going to say, 50 years. What we're having here is a conflict of interest, and what a lot of people don't realize is that anything that is handed over to the public, by and large, the military, the federal guys, has already looked at it, analyzed it, used it, deciphered it, and figured out, well, all right, it's worked for us. Let's hand it down to the general public. I think what has happened here, and I'm pretty sure this is what has happened here, the feds did not recognize that there is certain people amongst the general public that are just as high-minded and as intelligent as what they are pertaining to using these instruments against them. Once more, we are going through a pioneering state right now. It's almost like a process of elimination status, to where we're having to decipher what we can do, what we shouldn't do, what we should have done, what is impossible to do. And of course, the Russians basically wrote the rule book whenever it comes to this type of software technology in the cyber world. They basically wrote the rule book, and that's what everybody else is having to play by. And like I said, I think what we're having here is a clash between the high-ranking officials that have been familiarized with this type of software, give or take, for the past 30, 40, 50 years. I was just watching a program the other day pertaining to the Roswell stuff, and we actually had a stealth fighter that we was using as a ploy, and every day they would move this stealth fighter back into the bunkers to make sure that no satellites could take visual pictures of it while it was outside, either being worked on or displayed. What our people didn't recognize is that in the sands of the hot desert, that airplane promoted a shadow. In that shadow, it disfigurated the temperature as much as 30 to 40 degrees. And even though the airplane was put back into the bunker, our satellites, or their satellites, could still get an image of the airplane way before the airplane was ever promoted to the general public, that they could get a picture of the airplane off of the image of the sand, of the difference of the shadow and the sand, 30 to 40 degrees difference, that they could actually still get imagery of what that stealth fighter looked like, the design, even though they wasn't looking at the stealth fighter. So whenever it comes to various tools of technology that our military is very, very familiar with, or what they're not familiar with, it's probably infuriating to a lot of the general public, because they feel like that they've been left behind. They feel like, well, they've treated us like second-class citizens. Well, in the regard of national security, once more, anything that gets handed over to the American people, by and large, the big guys, they've already tested it, looked at it, felt it, deciphered it, used it, and figured out, well, this isn't going to be too harmful to the general public, so let's go ahead and hand it over there to them. In other words, our military has things on our side as well as their side that would be absolutely devastating to the general public if they handed it over to them right now, pertaining to sound frequencies, sonar, laser ability, even smell. Whenever you get to looking at tear gas that's used in crowd control, that's based upon smell, because you can literally control a crowd by a plume of smell that is so strong that the human body just cannot withhold or withstand that smell unless they have proper equipment on. So this is a clash between the general public and the high-ranking intel officials, and it's really sad that somebody isn't smart enough to figure out what's really going on here, and to point their finger at our chief and commander, and to call him treacherous or treasonous in the regard towards him communicating with the president of Russia is just absolutely ludicrous. It goes beyond ludicrous. It's asinizing to see how stupid, and I hate to use that word stupid, or uneducated, ignorant, that a lot of the general public are whenever it comes to international affairs that goes on between one international country versus another. It's just, to me, it's just absolutely asinizing to see how that the general public is basically just ignorant of these type of devices and these type of tactics that the big guys have been on top of now for years and years and years.
You could even see in the press conference afterwards how they had aligned themselves on the false, fully falsified accusations of Hillary Clinton, and the way they had coordinated on that. This is collusion in real time, and it's from it was shown in the indictment that came out last Friday that the Russians spent $90,000 in Bitcoin to fund their hack. And with that $90,000, they have succeeded in fully neutering the United States of America as a world force. And now it is now Russia has emerged as the sole superpower in the globe.
Jeremy, let me circle back to what I was talking to Kristen Welker about at the White House as we're again watching this tape of the president being asked the question, is Russia still targeting us? And he answers no. And around that table are the very same people who got him to go and read that statement yesterday, although some of it was crossed out and some things like there was no collusion were added in his black magic marker. But what do they do now? What do they do now when they thought maybe they'd made a baby step, giving at least the Republicans some cover to say the president misspoke? Whether or not they believe he did, they can say the president says he misspoke. And now he comes out and again contradicts what the intelligence community has unequivocally said.
Well, I think that they do what any advisor to President Trump has learned all along since the beginning of his campaign, which is to learn that you are ultimately at the whim of somebody who is utterly impulsive and non-responsive to your cues, to your direction.
That's the reason why we have interpreters, to be able to interpret each other's language in that regard. But one other thing I want to say to my viewers before I end this, there's a reason why certain people should not win the lotto. And it doesn't matter if it's 50 million, 550 million, or 750 million. Studies has proved that the majority of people, we're talking like 92%, the statistics may be higher than that wind up with this type of power, with this type of money, with this type of influence, within a certain amount of time, they basically self-mutilate themselves. They come to their own self-demise because they do not have no business handling and being around this type of influence. And then again, there's other people in the world that are multi-billionaires. And by looking at them, you would think that they was just the average old Joe out here walking around in bib coveralls and driving an old pickup truck that was full of dents. There's certain things that the general public really and truly is more of a harm than it is a benefit to, regardless whether it be large proportions amounts of money or large proportion amounts of guns, kind of like what happened down in Waco, Texas with the Davidians, or pertaining to a business owner that's selling tactical gear to the general public over in Waverly, Tennessee. There's certain things that should not be deployed to the general public because most of the time there's going to be a certain group of people out there that can handle it, but there's also going to be a certain group of people out there that cannot handle it. And once more, this is the reflection upon the 21st century. This is a reflection upon the little gizmos and gadgets that we all, are not all, because a lot of people are still walking around with flip phones because of superstitious of the government. And a lot of people don't even have phones. So I can't say all, but a lot of people have become acquainted with this type of technology. And believe it or not, they claim that the Galaxy 7 phone that I have, that I use for my personal use, has as much technology in it as the first Apollo that went to the moon. In our little mind's eye, because we haven't dug in deep to the fundamentals of the cyber system, we really can't relate to that now, can we? It's like, how in the world can a little bitty device that you put in your pocket or your pocketbook, how can it have more advanced features than the first Apollo that went to the moon? I can't answer the question because I myself am not a computer guru. I'm not a wizard whenever it comes to being able to figure out all the ins and the outs of the cyber internet technical features that now are advancing to the general public. But I guarantee you there's somebody out there that is. And the world is beginning to be fuller and fuller and fuller of these people that does have this type of knowledge, that can take a tool that is to be used as a tool and can turn it around and use it as a tool to be used as a weapon. That's the part there that the big guys, the military, the federal guys, the guys that's been advanced with this type of technology, that's the part there that they didn't put into their concept whenever they decided to say, you know what, let's hand it over to the general public. We think that they can handle this. You know, there's a reason why that they do not make automobiles made out of nuclear, similar to a nuclear submarine. They claim that they could make an automobile that would run indefinitely, forever, until it wore completely out. That you would never have to fill it up, you would never have to plug it up, you would never have to do nothing to it other than get in it and go. But the reason why that they don't hand something like this over to the general public is because they know that some idiot out there, some demented, cruel, insane person could take 200 motors and take the device, the nuclear device, out of each motor, and the next thing you know, invent a nuclear bomb. There's reasons why certain things should not be handed down to the general public. And this is just one illustration of it. Once more, what we're having here is a clash between the general public and the intel communities in the world pertaining to what they're supposed to be accustomed to versus what we are becoming accustomed to. And because of it, it's causing ripples, it's causing conflict, it's causing controversy. And I really hate to see the Homo sapiens on this planet go through this simply out of being uninformed, simply because they feel like that they have been left out of the picture. But there's reasons why that everybody cannot be a nuclear scientist. There's reasons why that everybody cannot have $750 million, because it will be devastating to that person's life. Thank you once more. Good luck to all of us. And shalom.
So Jennifer Palmieri, in the last 45 seconds that we have here, I'll go back to what Kristen said, which is you have been in situations where there's breaking news at the last minute, and the press secretary is getting ready to go out there, and you folks get together and you try to figure out how you're going to answer the questions that you know are coming. Is there an answer to the obvious question here?
Yeah, so this is the same geniuses that came up with would and wouldn't, and those are the that's the situation that they are in, and I suspect what she will do is what she often does, which is lie from the podium and say the president accepts the intelligence assessments of the United States intelligence community, even though he has undermined it in 3 days in a row now, and that's the situation that she is often puts herself in. But I suspect that they will just try to assert that he said he accepts their supports them and has confidence in them, and that's what and leave it at that.
Jennifer Palmieri, Jeremy Peters, Sabrina Siddiqui, Clint Watts, Kristen Walker.
And quit trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. Thanks again to my viewers. See ya.